So, have you ever really thought about what it takes to join the Pakistan Army? I mean, it's so much more than just filling out a form. It's a choice that completely changes your life. Today, we're going to break down that entire journey, from the very first requirements all the way to what life is actually like on the inside. Let's dive in.
But before we get into the how, let's start with a bigger question. What really defines a career in the military? Is it about the paycheck? Is it about the sacrifice? Or is there maybe something else going on behind the scenes? Keep that question in the back of your mind because we're going to piece together the answer as we go.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll cover what a career in uniform is all about. Then, we'll look at the two main paths, becoming an officer versus a soldier. We'll take you through the legendary ISSB test, get a feel for life in the ranks, and finally, we'll unpack that whole debate around pay, perks, and public perceptions.
Okay, Section 1, a career in uniform. And yeah, the subtitle says it all. This is way more than just a job. It's a massive commitment, a decision that basically reshapes your entire world around serving the nation.
Really, when you boil it all down, this path is built on three huge pillars: honor, discipline, and a deep, unwavering commitment to the country. And look, these are not just buzzwords. They're the principles that guide every single decision, every single day. It's a total transformation. So, how do you actually get in? Well, there are two main doorways. You can aim to become a commissioned officer, or you can enlist as a soldier. Now, the training, the roles, the responsibilities, they're worlds apart, but the ultimate mission, it's exactly the same.
Let's break down the key differences here. If you're aiming for the officer route through the PMA long course, you've got a tight age window, 17 to 22. And your grades matter a lot. You need at least 60% in your FA or FSC. Now, for soldiers, the criteria are a bit different. The age goes up to 23, and you can apply with a metric qualification. You'll also notice the height requirements are different for each track.
And what about opportunities for women? Well, there is a dedicated pathway called the Lady Cadet Course, or LCC. This is a direct entry route where you join as a captain. The requirements are pretty specific. You can be up to 28 years old, you need a 4-year bachelor's degree in a field like engineering or computer science, and there's a physical test, running 1.6 kilometers in 14 minutes.
All right, for anyone who wants to become an officer, every single path leads to one massive hurdle, a true legend in the selection process, the ISSB. This isn't just an exam, it's a crucible, designed specifically to find and shape the next generation of leaders.
So, what exactly is the ISSB? It stands for the Inner Services Selection Board. It's this incredibly intense 5-day evaluation that's all about figuring out if you have leadership potential. And it's the main gatekeeper not just for the Army, but for the Navy and Air Force too. They're all scouting for their future officers right here.
And believe me, this 5-day gauntlet is no joke. Day 1, you arrive at one of the 4 centers and get straight into initial screening and intelligence tests. Day 2 is all about psychology. They really dig deep. Then on days 3 and 4, things get physical and interactive. The Group Testing Officer, or GTO, throws you into outdoor team challenges, plus you've got formal interviews. And finally, Day 5 is the last assessment before you head home and wait for those results to pop up online.
So at the end of the day, the ISSB is looking at absolutely everything. They're testing your smarts, your reasoning, they're analyzing your psychological profile, they're watching how you lead and perform under pressure in those GTO tasks, and they're drilling down into your personality and motivation in that one-on-one interview. No stone is left unturned.
Okay, so let's say you make it through all of that. What comes next? Now we're going to look at life inside the ranks, the structure, the salary, and what that career progression looks like for an officer. The career path for an officer is super structured. You start out as a second lieutenant with a base salary of around 65 to 80,000 rupees a month. Once you're promoted to captain, that jumps up to over 100,000. As you climb the ladder, a lieutenant colonel is looking at somewhere between 180,000 and 220,000. And right at the very top, a 4-star general can command a base salary in the ballpark of 700,000 to 900,000 rupees. But, and this is a big but, remember, these are just the base salaries. That's before all the allowances kick in. And speaking of allowances, that leads us perfectly into our next section, the really complex topic of pay, perks, and perceptions. Now here, we're going to step back and just neutrally explore the public conversation that's always going on about the military lifestyle and, well, how it's all paid for.
Yeah, it's really important we're clear on this. The official salaries, the official perks, that's all public info. But the discussion around the actual lifestyle an officer lives is much, much broader. So what you're got to see reflects these public viewpoints and arguments, not official statements from the Army itself.
Okay, so one side of the argument goes like this. The salary itself is only one piece of the puzzle. The idea here is that with the Army covering huge expenses like housing, medical bills for the family, and travel, an officer's actual salary is freed up. It can be used for personal spending, which makes a pretty comfortable lifestyle much more attainable. But then there's a totally different take on it. This argument says we need to look outside the military completely. It suggests that for many officers, their comfortable or even lavish lifestyle isn't funded by their Army salary at all. Instead, it comes from pre-existing family wealth, things like agricultural land or family businesses.
So you can kind of see two parallel things happening here. On one hand, you have these external factors like a strong family financial background or high-paying jobs after retirement. But on the other hand, you have the Army's own powerful official support system. We're talking official housing, utility allowances, amazing medical facilities, and of course, significant retirement benefits, which often include plots of land.
All right, let's pull all of this together now for a final briefing. When you factor in everything we've talked about, what does a lifetime of service in the Pakistan Army really add up to? So what are the big takeaways here? First, there are two very different ways in, officer or soldier. Second, getting selected is incredibly tough, especially the ISSB, which tests you from every possible angle. Third, once you're in, it's a highly structured career with a ton of institutional support. And finally, the reality of the lifestyle is complex. It's a blend of official pay, massive perks, and for many, their own personal and family financial situation.
Which brings us right back to that question from the beginning. Is a military career all about service? Is it about sacrifice? Or is it a pathway to a privileged life? You know, based on everything we've seen, there's no simple answer. Maybe, just maybe, it's a little bit of all three.